So, welcome to today's topic. We are talking about Marvel versus DC. Now, there's a few things in geekdom that are holy, and comic books is one of them. And there's lots of comic book companies, but you get two main ones, Marvel and DC.
Yep.
So with me to talk about this is Legend Larry and Sidewinder, I think.
Turbo Proto probably got kicked him off.
I don't know. He's still in the middle of Twilight territory. He's still getting rid of the glitter vampire. So he'll join us shortly. So, there are two icons, and they're so similar yet so different, but you have to pick one. So we're going to start talking about the heroes, okay? I want to start with you.
Okay.
Which heroes do you prefer, Marvel or DC, and why?
I guess it depends, because especially if you pull out the hero like Superman, he's pretty much almost
He's
damn
a
near
douchebag.
douchebag, but he's purely invincible. He only could do so much on one person, a big planet. He goes after the big.
Faster than a speeding bullet.
Yeah.
He has every power. He's basically a walking god, and you tell me he can't do everything? Anyways,
Yeah, no, I'm saying this most because, you look at most of the comics, that's one of the problems you run into is there's so many things happen at the same time. He's only one person. He needs help. And so that's where you get the Justice League, but, even with that,
Oh, look, I think Sidewinder's there.
Ooh.
Hey, is this working?
Yes, this is working now.
Did we finally hit the right button?
Yes. How are you, Sidewinder? We're talking about Marvel versus DC.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
Okay, so Larry's telling us about the heroes he likes and why.
Going after Superman first off. Pretty much, I look at the way it's set up is pretty much, the way, I guess one thing I like about the ideal of it is he's a flyer. He literally flies all over the place, gets stuff done. That's a cool, neat superpower.
Yeah, but if you follow the rules of the Incredibles, capes aren't good. What if Superman were to get stuck to an engine? He's indestructible, so the plane's exploding.
Yeah.
Douchebag hero.
Oh.
Okay, who else?
Well, another person you went after the top 10 list, Wolverine.
Larry likes the douchebag heroes.
Yeah, I was like,
Why Wolverine?
Okay, well, mostly he's the biggest anti-hero. He just gets the job done. People don't probably like doing it. He does it anyway.
Okay, so comparing Marvel versus DC heroes, which ones do you think have the stronger heroes?
Stronger.
I mean, when you look at it,
I would say, Sidewinder, you want to comment on this? You're more than welcome to.
Sidewinder, who has the better lineup of heroes, Marvel or DC, in your opinion?
Of the stronger heroes, it would have to go to DC. I mean, they got Superman, they've got Green Lantern, all the big icons.
Well, see, I don't agree. I think DC superheroes are too stock footage for me. They're too perfect, and they don't equate to the real world to us. Whereas Marvel, they have down-to-earth heroes who have, like Peter Parker. He's Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I think Marvel heroes are easier to relate to.
So, I thought you said who was the strongest.
The better lineup of heroes, period. Not necessarily strongest, but who has a stronger lineup of heroes and why?
Well, I would say this. Usually with Marvel and DC, most people like the fantasy part of it. That's why they go jump to DC, because they don't want something I don't want to have somebody put on a costume and go beat up bad guys. I want somebody that's more than that. So they go to the DC route. Some people are in your case, well, I want to be more realistic. So they go down the route of Marvel, because that's usually the closest enough you can get to it.
So you think DC is a little bit more fantasy-based?
Fantasy, or at least I want to say it puts you out of the norm, so it's not something you can relate to, because it is some of fantasy.
So, Sidewinder, do you agree with that?
Marvel has the more human superheroes, like you said, ones you can relate to. DC has more of the icons, but like you said, they're more colorful comics.
See, it's, you put it that way. When I'm a kid, I liked reading, my first superhero love was Green Lantern and Aquaman, okay? They were just fantastic, but then as I grew up, I started getting more into Marvel because it just spoke more to, this realistic mindset, and they were based in real cities. They weren't made-up cities. And then you look at Batman, the new Batman trilogy, he made it real. So that's kind of like a Marvel version of Batman. That's how I look at it. And it's, you know, there's vast differences in the two, but there's similarities. Like you've got Superman, then you got Captain America.
Yeah.
You've got Darkseid, then you got Thanos, and it's like they mimic each other. So it's like you just pick your poison. Which one do you
I would
really
say
want to
this:
listen?
if you look at a good series, the Marvel versus DC, it was a comic book series that literally went after each other, and they actually put up to get next to Superman, they tossed the Hulk at him, and then Batman, they tossed Captain America at him, and then pretty much I think with Wolverine, they had a character called Lobo.
Lobo's awesome.
Yeah, and so it's like, you know, it was a good mashup. But then there's some like, you know, I think Quicksilver versus the Flash. That was another good toss-up out there. And it's like, you know, it's kind of makes you kind of wonder, like, who would be the better superhero with this power? And you're seeing some like...
That DC versus Marvel, that was done purely based on votes. People sent in votes, and who won the votes won. That's how Storm was able to beat Wonder Woman.
Yep.
You can turn so I can see the clock, though. So I guess so which one do you prefer, the DC heroes or the Marvel heroes, Sidewinder?
Marvel.
What about you, Larry?
I gotta say, same thing, Marvel. I like Marvel more than DC, but...
Marvel just really does it for me, you know?
Yeah, it does. It's like, it's mostly like, ooh, what do you do in that situation? Wow, this kind of sucks as superheroes having a bad week or a bad month or year, you know?
So we talked about heroes. Let's talk about the villains, because there's no such thing as a good hero without a good villain. And I want to let you start with this one, Sidewinder. Who do you think has the better villains, DC or Marvel?
Again, I'd have to go with Marvel.
Why?
When I try to think of a good DC villain, I'm running kind of short on a list there. If I could name a dozen great Marvel villains.
Do you know why you're running short? Because unless it's a Batman villain, nobody knows who they are.
Yeah, pretty much.
Everybody knows Batman's Rogues Gallery because they are freaking awesome. DC could win alone on Batman's Rogues Gallery. But when you want to talk about villains, you can name villains for every superhero group in freaking DC and Marvel because they all interact with each other, and there's so many, and they're memorable. I can name Bizarro and Mr. Mitsipitili, whatever the hell the thing's name is in Superman.
Mr. Picklick.
Yeah, and Lex Luthor, who isn't really a villain, he's kind of lame, let's be honest.
Yeah.
I have no idea who the Flash fights, or Wonder Woman. I think she fights a cat girl, some Neko.
I think with the Flash, ooh, yeah, you're right. I can't.
Captain Cold.
The only I can think of top of my head is pretty much just Professor X or something, or Professor something, but he's pretty much off color. Pretty much instead of Flash being purely red with yellow accents,
Lame.
this guy's pretty much yellow with red accents.
Lame. And yet, you know, you get the Marvel villains, and they're freaking memorable. I mean, Magneto, destroyed New York City with a wave? I mean, come on. You can't get much better than that. So you, Marvel or DC?
I would say Marvel because mostly with most Marvel villains, they don't stick to one superhero. They're literally moving.
It's a world of...
It's mostly like, they're almost like modular villains because mostly they're started with this one group, like say like a villain. Magneto was with the X-Men, but sometimes you see him every once in a while in different comic books as a villain until they made him a good guy.
But because they're comic books, can't they, like Sidewinder, do they do that in DC? Do they have the villains go to other superheroes?
They started doing that a little while ago, about 4 or 5 years ago. They started moving the villains back and forth and having them go off. It's like they were following Marvel's lead.
Yeah, Marvel was the one that did it first.
Yeah.
Because like a good example is Juggernaut. You know,
Juggernaut.
you could toss them in any comic book. You're Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, X-Men. You know, I could keep on going crazy, but yeah, he pretty much fought a good chunk of the Marvel universe.
So I
Look
guess...
at Dr. Doom.
Yeah, I guess we're agreed that Marvel has the best heroes and the best villains.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about story arcs, okay? Because there's nothing better than an epic story arc. Like, I loved the Civil War story arc. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
But on the DC side, I love the Dark Knight Returns story arc. I loved... Well, most of Batman's story arcs are pretty awesome. The Hush line, just brilliant.
Well, that's just one character you're talking about, like the whole universe
Overall, their
story arc.
arcs.
Yeah.
Your overall story arcs, because I know DC has like Infinite Earths, Crisis on this. They have things. Marvel has their Civil Wars, their
Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
They have that one where the
Fear Itself was another
Fear
one.
Itself, things like that. So, what about you? Who do you think has the better epic storylines, DC or Marvel?
That's a good one because it's a question of you're looking for epic or even some funny ones. Cause,
Both.
Because I could say I haven't heard any funny ones from the DC side, but I actually jumped into Fear Itself. Kind of liked it. It was like, wow, it's kind of like earth-shattering. All the Marvel characters involved in it. And it was, I guess, Asgardian nature because Thor was the big movie coming out. You know, they're trying to bring him up to light, I guess. But then you had right in the middle of it a series called Spider Island, which pretty much made all of New York, you know, have Spider-Man powers. How do you deal with that? You got to contain it. How does that happen?
That's what S.H.I.E.L.D.'s supposed to do, but S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't do their job.
Exactly, but it was a funny story arc because it was kind of like, wow, it just brought a whole bunch of villains that you haven't heard in a while, brought them back up to the surface again, and then you saw some like, well, oh, you know, I guess one part of it is Spider-Man, Peter Parker's character, was always the one floating away from, I guess, in Spider-Man taking off to go help the people. So he had a girlfriend at the time that was a cop. She happened to get these spider powers. She's like, you know what? Stay here. I got to help some people. And she takes off, literally doing what he normally does to his girlfriend.
So you like Marvel storylines?
Yeah, and it was like, and that was like, to finish up the story real quick, he was looking at it like, oh, so that's how it feels. It's like, you know, it was funny. It's just, you know, for the fact that story arcs are there.
There's humor to it, so
yeah,
it's not always too serious.
There's pretty much a little bit of flavor everything on the Marvel side. DC. Yeah, the last one I heard was The Brightest Day. Then there was The Darkest Night. The Darkest Night was dark, but then the way they did it with The Brightest Day, the ending of it was like, really? It's like, all this for that?
What about you, Sidewinder? Who do you think has the better storylines, Marvel or DC?
I'd probably have to stick with Marvel.
Well,
but
DC's
a lot
not
of
getting any
times,
love here.
they got the great ramp up, but then like Secret Invasion was great, and then it just kind of ended abruptly. It kind of didn't feel like it played all the way through. DC had a lot of really good ones there, but they were usually more epic. Like Crisis of Conscience was probably the thought I noticed that DC was doing great epic real storylines.
And see, I'm torn here because I love the Marvel storylines. I love how they all chain together, like World War Hulk and all the other stuff that they all kind of chain together. But Batman alone has some really badass storylines.
Oh, yeah.
Nightfall, Hush, The Longest Halloween. Once again, Batman could win the DC Universe hands down just from him alone. They have some brilliant writers over there.
Yeah.
I could not tell you anything outside of Green Lantern. I couldn't tell you any Aquaman storylines. I couldn't tell you any Wonder Woman storylines. But when you talk about Marvel, you know Earth X, you know the Dark Phoenix saga, which is probably one of my favorite story arcs of all time. So hands down Marvel. But I will have to show the love to DC here simply because of Batman. Because Batman's not a real superhero. He's a man.
Yeah.
Dealing with supervillains that are literally insane. So it's Marvel, but Batman is a very close, almost badass.
Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, you were saying about the characters. Once I say for it, DC's biggest, most respected guy is an alien who has literally the powers of a god. But the most respected hero in the Marvel universe is basically the Batman equivalent there, because he's more spangly.
Yeah, Captain America.
Yeah.
So let's talk about supergroups, because there's 2 in DC, and there's how many in Marvel?
X-Men, Avengers, Fantastic Four, the Defenders.
So
yeah, a lot of them.
I'll start this one. When it comes to supergroups, as much as I love the Avengers and X-Men and all these things, there's just too much. I prefer DC with its minimalist group approach. I like Avengers more than Justice League, but Justice League, I mean, they're the same thing, but it's Justice League and it's the Green Lantern Corps. You don't have every hero being part of a group, so they're not intertwined with all these different story arcs, and it's easier to follow for me.
True, but when you look at the Marvel side, it's almost like, okay, you got Justice League, all the world, and you got the Green Lantern Corps universe.
That's it.
Marvel does, okay, you got street level, city level, nation level,
Do we
world
need
level,
all those levels?
galactic
Because
level.
here's Spider-Man who'll be in the Avengers and Fantastic Four and join the X-Men. And some of the X-Men will go to the other X-Men. I mean, there's too many groups and it's hard to follow. I'm all about the team dynamics,
Well,
but keep it simple for
I
me.
look this way. It is broken down so you can follow one. It's like, well, what if I don't want to hit a Galactic? You just don't watch the Galactic series. You jump down to the National. Okay, you got
But that
Avengers.
gets to the whole weird, there's just too many West Chiefs, not enough Indians. Is that the best way to put it?
But even with that said, it's still something you could choose from. It's pretty much, it gives you more of a choice versus I'm stuck with these two.
Well, I'm also to the point where, you know, it doesn't seem like it's an epic deal when you can just join any group. It's an epic deal if you're in the Justice League, and it's an epic deal if you're in the Green Lantern Corps. That is a sign of significance. You could just go join the Avengers by spitting on something. I mean, come on.
True, but then you got the core Avengers, pretty much like, Thor, Hulk,
Yeah, but
Captain
still,
America,
they've got all
Iron
these
Man.
other ones for the wannabes. It's like saying you get a ribbon just for participating. So I'm giving it to DC this one. What about you?
I gotta say Marvel because I like the modularity. I could choose which group I want to watch and read, and pretty much focus on that one group.
Sidewinder?
I'm gonna stick with Marvel. I'm a big Avengers fan.
So DC got some love, but it's too much. And so we're gonna wrap up our Marvel versus DC showdown because with one more thing, but Marvel's cleaning house. Let's talk about the movies. Now, here's what I don't understand. Warner Brothers owns DC. They can intermingle those characters into whatever movies they want. Marvel is owned by Disney, Sony, Paramount, 20th, all these other companies, yet they could somehow mingle their characters all together.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. How can you not have had Superman show up in a Batman movie?
Yeah, that's the thing. Why that would be like there have been some fan films that want this movie to come out. People, you listen to Warner Brothers, it would have been a good movie, but it's like it just doesn't happen because it's a good dynamic.
And they're like, how did they take them so long to do a JLA movie? I mean, Avengers rocked the house, but they built up to that for years. So now they want to jump in and just do a JLA movie. Well, that's not going to work because you don't have the build-up.
Yeah, I will say it's one thing you look at I guess back in the 80s, you had Superman with Christopher Reeve, which was my best Superman. I love the series hands down. And the thing about it is this. The technology back then versus now, how to make the superpowers, is you're talking about a gigantic leap in technology because you can bring in CGI.
All sorts of stuff.
All the good stuff. And it's like bringing that to the forefront, what they did with Batman. They put him and said, okay, what if Batman wanted to be a realistic character?
Yeah,
And
they've turned Batman into a Marvel character.
Yeah,
Once again, Marvel movies rock.
Yeah.
What about you, Sidewinder?
What was that? Say again?
What about you? Do you prefer Marvel or DC movies?
Well, at the moment, the only good DC movies ever made were Christopher Nolan's Batman movies.
Which took a Marvel approach, made it real.
Yeah.
Which I can respect that, but I would have liked to have seen him do some more superhero-esque. Like, I would love to see his take on Mr. Freeze. That would have been awesome.
Oh, yeah, that would have been cool.
But
Yeah.
Did it with another series. I guess I want to.
Mr. Freeze does not need light-up nipples. Screw you, Joel Schumacher. Screw you. Light up freaking nipples. No, I don't think so. So, Marvel just seems to have the right way to make the movies. And it's bridging that gap, bringing people into the whole Marvel universe. Whereas DC, Superman Returns, the whole movie was built around him doing the one airplane scene. The rest of the movie was just total pile of crap.
Yeah.
All their money went to this one epic scene with this airplane, and then after that, I was like, it's done.
Yeah. Possibly.
And Green Lantern, not a good movie.
Yeah.
I don't know how you screwed that one up. I literally don't know how you screwed up Green Lantern.
Yeah, and it's like I'm looking at it, it's like they did the Batman approach. First movie, halfway through the movie, he's already telling his identity to somebody. You don't do that.
Anyways.
That's the one thing I gotta say about Marvel. Okay, you can play around it because that's the way they are. DC, that was the whole thing. They kept their identity. It's like it's kind of hard to find who they are, but yet they're just like trying to just go to Marvel route and say, hey, I'm this guy. You can see my face now. I'm this actor playing it. Oh.
I don't understand because DC has some of the most iconic characters, but they can't do anything right with them on the silver screen. They got it right in the animated movies. Those are brilliant.
Yeah,
the Marvel animated movies are crap, but the DC ones are brilliant, especially the new one, the Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, Part 1, brilliant. First Flight Green Lantern, brilliant.
I will say this, because I had to say this because it was Disney that did this movie, and it was a kids' movie, and I watched it, but I like it. I think it was...
Was it Hulk versus Thor?
No, it was Superhero High, I think it was called.
Sky High.
Sky High.
Brilliant movie as well, but
Yeah.
I don't know where that fits in anyways.
But I'll look at it this way. The way they did it, kind of like, okay, you get beat down, no
Couldn't
blood.
DC do that?
Yes, I'm saying, like, they can get a movie that's already been out there, people love the hell out of it. It's like, that's the format they're looking at for DC. But they don't ever follow it.
DC does good animated movies and animated shows. Their movies suck. Marvel, their movies are rocking, but their animated shows are kind of crap. Because, the original Spider-Man and X-Men from the 90s were really good because they're comic book adapted.
Yeah.
Now it's just kind of like whatever, like Ultimate Spider-Man's like Teen Titans, but I prefer Teen Titans, I love Spider-Man. But anyways, any last words, Sidewinder?
I would say DC's on the running, though. They're trying. They keep following behind Marvel, but I think they're starting to get into the idea with the more human characters with this new 52 line they're doing.
And that's, it's working for them. Maybe DC will finally catch a clue from Marvel, who's literally knocked them out. So that's a wrap on our Marvel versus DC showdown. What is it? Marvel 5, DC a half?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a slaughter right there.
But I can say to give DC a bone, if they actually get smart, Warner Brothers listening, think of the concept of Sky High. It's like literally, I guess.
I think it's too late for them right now because Marvel's literally set the standard and they're going to have to catch up. But once they catch up, I'm pretty sure they'll be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But they have to catch up first. And Marvel will already be leaps and bounds. Like, they're already starting phase 2.
And I gotta say one thing to help Marvel out, they actually followed what the superheroes' powers are. They didn't try to change it.
Yeah.
Wow, what's a thought? Common sense there. Come on, people.
So that's the wrap on the Marvel vs. DC. You can catch this later online. Add your comments. Always, you're free to call in. The number's always here.